Here's Dr. Sharon Lamm-Hartman.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to have some fun today, and I'm grateful you're all here. So I want you to think about it, because we've been doing these programs for the past 20 years inside of Fortune 100 companies, and we've achieved some results. Our clients are receiving a lot of results from the work that we're doing. So I'm going to share a few of those with you and then teach you more about this formula and how you can apply it. So once we always look at how can we develop your employees and leaders to excel. And when I say excel, I mean excel in business performance and team performance and leadership performance. And so I'm thinking about when I was in our 5-day program and Joe kind of was talking out loud and he came across a little arrogant. Have you ever noticed that with some people when they come across a little arrogant? You know, where they're saying that they're better than everyone else? And he had that tone. And so I took him aside and I said, I know that you don't want to come across this way. And I gave him some direct feedback about how he was appearing. And he said, thank you. You know, no one's ever told me that before. No one's been that direct before. And over the course of the week and so much videotaping that we do in our programs, he ended up transforming his style. So he showed up confident instead of arrogant. So that's an example of a result that you can get from developing your leaders. Also, we have achieved a 95% retention rate in many of our clients. So if you think about it, in the first year after people go through this program, they often stay because they feel valued, they need to be nominated for the program, and they want to stay. And if you equate that to hiring costs, how many of you know how much it costs to hire a person and train a person? So the retention is really critical. It costs 1.4 times an individual's salary. So it's a lot of money that you can save in hiring costs. And also 50 to 80% of the people who go through our programs end up getting promoted in the first year. So that's a huge promotion rate. So you're seeing lots of results that clients are realizing. And in entrepreneurial companies, that can equate to revenue as well, revenue and profits. We're also helping a lot of our clients get to yes faster in any presentation. So whether you're motivating someone or trying to sell, and talking about sales, we have been helping companies like Boeing and Virgin on RFP teams and really helping them to go in and form their oral presentations so that they can go in front of their potential customers and win business. So everyone that we have taught this to and actually worked closely with RFP teams has won. And they will go in front of their orals and do better and get outstanding. And that's why we can say that we have helped our clients achieve billions in business. So how many of you would like to achieve billions in business right now? All right, I want that for you. And so I'm going to teach you a code that hopefully will help. And one is your presence. So much goes into your presence, and we're going to talk about that today. So all around your authenticity, your qualities, your nonverbal, how you dress, everything goes into your presence. But you can't forget your audience. So often when you hear the word authenticity, sometimes people forget, okay, what about, how does that mean and how does that interact with the audience that you're in? So you need to tailor your message to your audience because you've chosen to be in front of a certain audience. So you need to tailor that message. And then your presentation. So do you have a clear presentation? Is it compelling? Is it meaningful? Is it inspiring? Is it keeping people engaged throughout? So if we take all three of those things together, that equals your success. So that's the authenticity code that we'll talk with you about today. And I know that if you think about success, it's the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. And I want you to think, we just entered a new decade. You know, just a few weeks ago, we entered a new decade. And I want you to think about, what does success look like for you in this next year? And there's actually in your folders on the left side, there's a sheet you could write that down. So this is going to be for you kind of thinking and doing some work along the way over the next hour and a half or so. So think about, what does success look like for you in this next year? and jot it down. And you can think about this with respect to business, with respect to life. What does success look like for you? And I'll give you a minute to think about that. So the first thing that we always need to do is to name it, to write it, so that we can create it. So today what I'm hoping is that I'm going to share some tips with you that will help you to achieve that desired level of success that you're wanting through the authenticity code. And that will help you to achieve your desired level of leadership and business success, as well as positively differentiate you from your competition. So if you think about it, presence can be often what puts you above another company when you're competing, or even if you're going for the same job. So it can put you above your competition. It can differentiate you. And I'm hoping that at the end of the presentation, you're going to actually take these skills and use them. So I hope that you will learn and apply how to take your presence to the next level and your team's presence as well. And I'm going to teach an audience understanding matrix that will help you to tailor your language to your audience. And the proven formula for presentation success that we really have been teaching for 20 years around the globe. And I guarantee, I have a personal guarantee, if you use this formula, it will take your presentations better than your past best. And I hope you apply the tools. So sound good in an hour and a half?
That's great.
All right. And then I hope you will also provide us with feedback, because we're broadening. So I've taken a 5-day program and put it into an hour and a half. And I would love your feedback. So please give me your feedback at the end. And we have a feedback form, and that's all we're asking for today, is just to please tell us what worked, what didn't work. And we're broadening our market, as well as we are putting books out. And we're also putting a digital training program out as well. So going beyond the Fortune 100s to entrepreneurs, and also to leaders and the general public. So when you put a book into the world, anyone might pick that book up. So I would love your feedback at the end. So the agenda, I'm going to start with a couple success stories of people who have gone through this and applied it. And then we'll talk about your presence and give you some tools for that, your audience, your presentation, and then there'll be times for Q&A. And obviously, if you have a question as we go, please ask as well, and then we'll get the feedback. So Ursula English is a client of ours, and she's a senior vice president of business operations. And she basically came to our 5-day program and said, you know, they're sending me to charm school. Yeah, they're sending me to charm school. I can't believe I'm here. I'm in charm school. And I said, you know, could you just stay a little bit open, Ursula, to receive this week? Because if at the end you feel that way, I totally get it. So she said, all right. So she stayed open, and she ended up really transforming and taking her leadership to that next level, so that she received a promotion to a senior VP, and this is in a company of 140,000 people, and she's in the top 70 of that company. And she also took this and then spread it around her team, so that her team could benefit from this as well. and it completely changed the culture in the company. And then Paris Forrest is an IT director, an executive, and when she came in, she was at an entry-level manager position, and she said, I can't seem to get promoted. Can you help me? And so she applied this code, and she received, in the first year after the program, a double promotion, and she's now an executive and is on many succession plans for vice president. So this is how impactful that using the code can be. And then we all know our Dr. Elaine Rawls, who saber extraordinaire. She taught my son at age 13 how to saber, and taught me how to saber also. Co-founder of Commit Agency and master coach at IOL now. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about your experience.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, let's see, when it comes to executive presence, everything around me is built around the talent of sabering sparkling wine. However, through my work with IOL, I started really about a year ago when the president of our agency now, David, said, would you be willing to help us do some development work with the leaders in our company? And at the time, I was getting coaching from Sharon, and I was getting certified in her coaching program. And so she really supported me and helped me do this. And so we went through the IOL process at Commit Agency. And initially, it involves a lot of interviews and analysis, and we found that there was definitely a theme across the agency in that related to executive presence, and more specifically related to the concept of clarity. So clarity is one of the key executive presence qualities that we'll probably hear about today, maybe. And and for us, it manifested itself in like conflict management, getting feedback, giving feedback, building a team, like giving presentations. There were so many ways that for every leader in the organization it was different. So I got the opportunity to work with 5 or 6 leaders directly. Some people are here today from the agency that I've worked with directly. Everybody here from Commit Agency today, though, has experienced this process over the last year. And using the ILL process and everything else that we've been doing, last year our agency grew over 25%. And now we're in planning for how do we take this experiment that we did and amplify it and really take it to the next level in 2020. So that was the experience that we had around executive presence at Commit Agency.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, great. And then next is Dana Sterling, who's CEO and founder of Sterling Structural Therapy. And that is a business that specializes in innovation in chronic pain treatment. And I'm going to let Dana say a few words about her experience.
So I want to tell you a brief story about how just a little bit of coaching from this amazing company made a massive difference to my bottom line and my ability to create impact in the world, which is what I would really like to do. Slightly obsessed. I'm going to show you, with Sharon's help, a difference of the same presentation, same name, same content, both of them sitting on YouTube, released 2 months apart. One, to say that it was rink-a-dink is complimentary. It was done at a local library, close to where the business is. It was filmed with an iPhone. You know, my therapist was dressed in gym clothes. Sharon, do you mind showing? Yeah. Right there. And it still sits on YouTube if you ever would like a good laugh, and about 5,000 views. Same presentation, same name, same content, polished up. Was released 2 months later. Okay. And that presentation right now is close to 500,000 views.
Wow.
And last year, but in less than a year, brought us over 33% increase in revenue, and most importantly, that impact that we want to make, that people should know they have an option. They don't need to live in chronic pain. So Again, a little bit of coaching. Think of all of your products, your message, your team, you. Polish up your presentation. Can you imagine what you can create with that? Okay? So super, super thankful for this resource.
Thank you, Jana. And by the way, her company is amazing. I've gone to it, Elaine goes to it. And if you know anyone in chronic pain, they should be talking to Dana. So we're going to get into your presence. And that we're going to talk a little bit about first impressions. So if you think about when you go and meet someone, what goes into a first impression? So it's obviously your appearance. And how about attitude? Could attitude go in? Like the Joe guy I told you about who kind of had an arrogant attitude? The first impression is not the greatest when that's what's coming out. Actions. What are you doing matters. And even the statements you say and whether you appear confident or not. So that all goes into first impressions. And Richard Branson, we work in Virgin, and I love this guy. He is an amazing entrepreneur. I tend to make up my mind about people within 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That's all it takes. So you want to create a positive, lasting impression when you are having a first impression. You want people to trust you and respect you and be competent and committed to work with you. And you want to always appear confident. So first impressions can create lasting impressions. And how does that happen is through one's presence. So what's authentic presence? And so if you think about it, I'm going to put up some words, and if we all can read along, I promise that's the least touchy-feely we'll get today, okay? And we're not going to sing it or anything. So let's just say, how you affect others.
How you affect others.
By the impression you make through.
By the impression you make through.
Your character.
Your character.
Your physical presence.
Your physical presence.
Your demeanor.
Your demeanor.
Your presentation of thoughts.
Your presentation of thoughts.
And general mode of conversation.
And general mode of conversation.
You have with others.
You have with others.
Now that's a lot, right? It's much more than your physical presence. A lot goes into our presence. And by the way, your presence follows you everywhere you go. So when we are sitting in a room like this, whether we're speaking, whether we are having a cup of coffee, walking down the hall, your presence follows you. Yes, you're always there with your presence. And it's so critical. So let's talk about why it's critical. What would you say if you fill in this blank? Authentic presence counts for what % of what it takes to be successful in business and leadership?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Say more, Susan.
I think it's important to pay attention to all of that, whether you're in a personal relationship or in a business relationship. It leads to success. The subliminal thoughts that happen as you're talking, meeting someone new, or as they're meeting you, are huge, similar to your Virgin Airways guys. I
Right.
would venture to guess that most people make up their mind within the first 30 seconds, not just him.
Right, exactly. So anyone else have a guess of what %? 90-ish? Okay. Yeah, so I've heard anywhere between 50 and 90%. And so what does that mean is that if you're going for the same job with someone who has similar skills and talents, but you have better presence, you'll be more likely to get the job. If you are going to sell something, right, from your business, and you're going up against someone else, you'll be more likely to get the sale if you have better presence. So it's huge in terms of success in business and in leadership. So I want you to think about what extent do you have it. And you actually have a handout in your packet. We stapled a little packet together on page 6. And there is a self-assessment that I'm going to ask you to do and be really honest with yourself. And these are 12 authentic presence qualities that we've done research on and we have found can really help with your elevation of authentic presence. So if you turn to page 6 and you really think about each one of those and you rate yourself on 1 to 5, 1 is I suck, 3 is I'm okay, and 5 is I'm amazing. If you don't like I suck, you can put in needs improvement. And just quickly, like, don't let the brain think too much. Just kind of self-assess where you think you are on each of these qualities. Thanks. So you're just doing the one page on page 6, and then what you're going to do is capture your top 2 and your lowest 2 at the bottom of the page where there's that space. So what are some of your strengths? Let me hear some strengths that you came up with, that you rated yourself high.
Clarity.
Clarity.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Sincerity.
Sincerity.
Inspiration.
Awesome.
Warmth.
Passion, warmth. Okay, great. And then how about some that you want to develop? Warmth. Catherine, was that you? I know, right? Yeah. That's right, right? Love it. Clarity, thoughtfulness.
Openness.
Openness. So it's really great to pick a couple of these to work on over a period of time, and you can set the period of time. You can say, okay, this year I'm going to work on these, this quarter I'm going to work on these, whatever that might be. And I'm going to show just a few today. So when you look at this one, what do you think that demonstrates? Warmth, right? And that's that willingness of being approachable and accessible, and people, you take an interest in them. And so you can acknowledge someone for a job well done. That goes such a long way, doesn't it? And learning and speaking about what you know is special to someone. One time in these RFPs when we were going to be helping this team, and they found out that their customer loved cheesy grits for breakfast. So we brought in cheesy grits for breakfast. So it's little personal touches like that. Or maybe someone just rescued a cat, or something like that, and you want to talk about that because it's important to that person. That's how you demonstrate warmth. Also, sharing a personal story can be a great way, or just smiling. And by the way, people can tell if you're smiling on the phone. Can't you tell that?
Yes.
Right? When you're smiling, so just smiling more can also bring more warmth to a person. So we have on pages 9 through 10, there's a list of all the qualities, and then what you can do to up your presence in the ones that you really wanted to. What's this one? It could be polish, clarity, clear diamond, which we all love. All right, the ability to communicate your message in an intuitively clear and compelling way. So important to be able to be clear in your message. And so what we're going to teach today is the formula for presentation success. And I think if you use that, it will really help you to increase clarity in your presentations. And your presentation doesn't have to be a formal in front of a group either. It can be an informal one as well, how you message. And also how to state a great bottom line up front. So that's going to be called the executive summary, which we'll also go into today. And Philip Lecter, who is over here, and many of you know as Sharon Lecter's fabulous son, and he is amazing. So this guy is on our staff at the Boeing Leadership Center teaching this program, both 2.5-day, 5-day, and he really helps people to take that presentation to the next level and to give that feedback that they need in order to transform in their presentations. So thank you. And then also clarifying what was meant. So that's also a very big thing. So many times people can go up, I call it the ladder of inference. You know, there's a tool out there that like you see something and then you make an assumption about it, but you really haven't checked out if your assumption is accurate. So to clarify what is meant. And I think that's very important. And I know, Elaine, you've been using that tool in Commit and also with IOL.
Yeah, and this particular part is the hardest. So we just started rolling the tool out to the whole company, but in general, in our practicing the tool, it is the step that people leave out or don't bother to do that's so important is saying to the other person, what did you hear me say? Like getting clear that what you just said, whatever your assumption is you're trying to address, that they actually heard what you said versus them thinking about how they're going to respond, to whatever. And so, and that's the step that people leave out in the beginning. You really have to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. And so there's a lot of times that we help two people clear up a misunderstanding and hear each other, because that can impact performance in such a way, and even people leaving a company.
So I'm just going to say that Elaine really helped my company with that in 2 sessions of conflict resolution at 2 really valuable people. Basically, I'm out, if she doesn't leave, I'm out, and really fully trained, really valuable people into conflict resolution sessions using that tool.
She was glad to keep, she kept both people, so thank God.
No guarantee, but they are still
Yes, they're still there. Yes.
We're happy. So.
Good. All right, so if this is one that you're working on, these are some ideas, but you may think of others as well, and you can jot them down on those pages. And then confidence. How many of you had confidence as a growth area? Just a couple. And so that's often what we see in corporations. We see a lot of women having confidence that they are working on, but when you're like a business owner, I think you have it. And the air of assurance. So that doesn't mean you're better than someone. It means I believe in myself. And so you're believing in yourself, believing in your team. Sometimes if you want your team to go to that next level of success, it's like to believe that they can do it helps them get there. And then being prepared to answer the most difficult questions you could receive from a client or from your staff, whatever that might be. How can you be prepared? That helps to increase confidence. So those are a couple ideas if you're working on confidence. And what's this one? This is the last one we're going to go into.
Polish.
Yeah, polish and poise. So this is really that look of sophistication, right? That conveys this background of education and experience. Yeah, Nancy's sitting back there going, look, because she she wore her, what did you call them? Yeah, you're right. So greeting clients with a firm handshake, not the wet fish or the fingers only. That's saved for the Queen of England. And then dressing appropriately, all right, for the audience is really important. So that's something that we're really big on. So when I go into Boeing and I'm working with military, or I go into our government clients, I'm dressed, really nicely and formal. And then when we go into more of our entrepreneurial clients, like Virgin, it's like they say, please rip your jeans more. Okay, so you dress appropriately for the event. And I think that's so important. So what I also gave you was a sheet that is on page 7, and you can actually take that back and use it with your staff. So you gave yourself a self-assessment, And if you don't have a staff, you could give it to other loved ones. And you can say, hey, how well do I do these? So you gave yourself a self-assessment, but now go ask some other people and say, how well do I demonstrate each of these qualities? And have them rate you on those. So needs improvement, average, amazing. And then you can compare yourself and your other assessment and see, okay, well, what does this tell me? And develop that plan for how you can up your presence and help your team to up their presence. So feel free to use that in your companies, and I hope it helps in terms of helping people to get a flavor of what their presence is. And we have extra forms if you marked yours up for the self-assessment in the back of the room. So that was the most we're going to cover on presence today, but we're going to move on to audience. And audience is so critical because you have to know your audience in order to do an effective presentation or in order to do an effective sale. So it's very important. So this is the whole formula we're going to go through, but the first is to know your audience. And so many people, I know I used to start writing a presentation and I didn't think about my audience. So many people do that, and it's really critical that you first think about your audience. So this is my definition of authenticity, which is your most powerful way of adding value by expressing your unique gifts and talents for your chosen audience. It is an authentic choice what audience you are in front of. It's an authentic choice. So if you are a person who is very formal and you choose a formal audience, that's your authentic choice. Even if you're informal and you choose a formal audience, it's still an authentic choice. You're choosing to be there. So that's why we need to know our audience. So you've chosen as business owners or as employees, you're part of a company culture. And as a business owner, you've chosen to be in front of certain customers. So you need to understand their perception. And so there's this simple tool that we often start with, and this seriously can take 5 to 10 minutes of your time to fill out, and we highly recommend it. And it's what's most important to them, what hooks them, what details do they need, and then what are they willing to compromise. So that's really important because you want to know their language. So when you go into another culture, you kind of adapt to that culture. And this is on, I believe, page 12 of your handout. And I want you to think about, give me an example of a client that you work with or a customer that you work with. Physicians. So physicians. So what would you think would be most important to physicians? I think some of you are physicians in here. So what would be most important? Facts and quality.
Attention to detail.
Attention to detail. Time. Science. They want the proof. What would hook them? If you said something that they would really want to listen to you, a physician. What would hook them?
Success rates. Yep. Outcomes.
Success rates and outcomes, absolutely. So you might want to start off with something like that. What details do they need? What kind of details? The proof.
Data.
Right. So you might not go into details of your specific method, but they want details of the proof. So a lot of times we're working with engineers, and they tend to give all the technical detail to non-engineers, and you're like, okay, you don't have to give that much detail to that audience. But if you're at a technical audience, by all means do. And then what are they willing to compromise? You can think of that in cost and schedule, quality, safety. So if you know what are they most willing to compromise, then that helps you to have that conversation. So I'd like you to think about a presentation that you need or want to deliver this year. And if you don't have one in mind, think about telling your journey or your story about your career. Or you could also think about how can I best talk about my company that I'm in currently. So just kind of think about a presentation that you want to deliver this year. And if you think about who's the key audience And within that, who's your key decision maker? And maybe you want to fill in a couple of those around that. So on page 12, like just take a minute and fill in a couple of the questions. You know, what's most important to them?
Sometimes your presentation that you want to give is very personal, like it's internal, it's like one-on-one, like you want to get a raise, or you want to, you know what I mean? So it's an internal presentation, not always like,
That could be, I want to ask for a raise.
presentation is a presentation.
That's true. Thank you, Elaine. Yeah. So everyone in commit right now is writing down, I'm asking for a raise. Yes. So definitely, yeah, so right.
I'll put the presentations together.
There you go. You will. Yeah, it could be a one-on-one. Thank you for that. It doesn't have to be in front of some big group.
Right.
But I want to ask for a raise, or I want to talk to my boss about something that's been bothering me. But you always start with analyzing your audience first. So you can speak their language versus trying to speak your language. And I'm going to talk about what happens when we go in and try to speak our language.
Say more about what it means, what they're willing to compromise. I'm
Yeah,
not getting that.
Okay, so are they willing to compromise? A lot of times, you know, someone might be willing to compromise on cost. Like they're like, okay, well, I'll compromise on cost. I'll pay more, right? Because to have a higher quality product. Or I don't want to compromise on cost. You know, that's most important to me. So cost, schedule, that might be time, quality, safety. Those are like the 4 things I think about when I say, what are they willing to compromise? Like for you, it might be for a divorce client going through a divorce, right? That they're willing to pay for your fees because they want a quality attorney.
The best.
The best. The best in the valley right here is
In the
Angie.
nation.
Yes, yes. All right. So I just say use this matrix the next time you go to have a conversation or do a presentation. It's very important to kind of first ground yourself in the audience before you start to write, so you can start to talk their language. And in our programs, and it's easy, right? It doesn't take that long. And what if you don't know? What if you don't know about your audience? So you could ask someone who does know. You could find out who their inner circle is and ask their inner circle. You could ask people who have been in front of that audience before. So just do your research before you have to go and talk to them. There's more copies of this in the back too. So in addition to that tool, we also use a lot of personality assessments. So many of you are probably familiar with the DISC or Myers-Briggs. And if you think about using those assessments when you're talking to an audience, this is really critical. And we came up with 4 that are just basic, but they're ways of starting to assess people. Because can you think about a people person, like who just is very personal and they tell you everything? So what else might a people person do? Like to cite a people person? Hug. Yes, hug. They want to connect with you. I know I'm next to a people person when I sit down on an airplane and like I want to put my headphones in and do my work, and they keep talking to me. And no matter what I do, they keep talking. So that's a people person. So you would talk differently to that audience if you know that that person or the decision maker would be a people person. You would want to take some time to connect with them first. Party people. How many party people do we have in the room? Angie, I knew you'd, yes. And so, you know, and they're fun and humorous and want to have fun, and they don't want to get too deep into things. And so you want to make sure you have fun in whatever you're doing when you're talking to party people. I just did an offsite for a leadership team in a very entrepreneurial company, a new space company, and they're like, we want to play a space video game at lunch. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we did, and it was fun. Right? Planning people. They want the data. You know, give me the data, give me the proof. What we were talking about with physicians many times, you might have planning people there. And then there's the point people. Get to the bottom line and get to the point. Now, what happens when a personal person tries to talk to a point person? They lose them. I see this so often because people come up and they start presenting the way that they prefer, and they lose their audience. So you have to kind of think about, who am I presenting to? If I'm a people person, but I'm talking to a bottom line person, I better get to the point. But if I'm presenting to a people person, I better spend time connecting and telling stories. So that's the difference. And to think about that before going to have a conversation or a presentation is critical, because I actually just was talking to a colleague, and he was like, I could not believe this guy came in, and the CEO is a point person, and she was like, get to the bottom line, and the guy was selling financial services, and he's like talking about his family and their family, and the woman's like, I'm done. Like, just we're not doing this. So, and he didn't know what happened, right? So think about that. This is critical, and we actually have a lot of resources around this. We're going to hand one out. Before you leave, you can pick it up. I just thought of it as I was coming, so I made some copies, and it's before you leave, you can pick it up. Style cheat sheet. So you can at least read about, what do people, what are they like, what are party people like, what are planner people like, and what are the point people like.
What do you do in a situation where you've got several of these and they are decision makers?
Yes.
Maybe there's 3 decision makers in a group of 5 that you're presenting to.
Exactly. And you know, so what you have to do is vary your modalities and what you use. Because if you only come up with one, you're going to lose 75% of your audience. So you have to really vary the modality. So you got to put some fun in, right? You got to put some data in, you have to put some points in, and you have to put some connection in. And that's a hard audience, because you've got to balance it all. So we actually do role plays on that, like how would you present to those types of people? And how would you do it in a mixed audience? Okay, so keep that in mind the next presentation that you have to do, or the next interaction, like, who am I talking to? I have to speak their language. So that's about the audience. Any questions on that? Okay, so we're going to go into the presentation. And with your presentation, there's a lot here. So I'm going to go through the rest of the formula that you can use. And by the way, you can do this with charts or no charts in a presentation. So you can follow this formula whether you use PowerPoint charts or whether you don't. It's just a very easy formula to remember. And so the first is attention-getting opening. So you can use a story as an attention-getting opening. You could do an image or a video to get the attention of the audience. You could state a statistic or a question or a quote. And there's even more than that. I mean, these are a few that you could do when you are trying to get the attention of an audience. Now, why do you need to do an attention-getting opening? Why is that important?
You want their interest.
You want their interest.
Focus.
Yeah. Engagement. You know, yes. And, you know, we're thinking, we're so busy, right? Every day, and we've got our phones, and we process 11 billion bits of information per second. So that is huge. So this is our brain. We have all this stuff going on, and it's information overload many times. So you have to really get everyone to stop thinking about what they're thinking about and start to focus on you. So that's the reason to do an attention-getting opening. So it's like the cover of a book or a movie poster. That's the equivalent in a presentation. So again, think about a presentation or a conversation that you need to make and what would work best. As I go through this, you might get some ideas for your own presentation, because I want you to leave here and be able to apply things. So it's on the back page of where you wrote down your success, what you want out of success. It was a one-pager, and it's my presentation outline worksheet. So as I go through this, you can be thinking of your own presentation and actually get some work done. Can you tell I'm a point person? All right, so attention-getting openings. Here are some examples. You can tell a story, right? How many of you love stories? Yeah. And I love Brené Brown's quote, "Stories are just data with a soul." You can use a black blank if you are using PowerPoint to tell a story. And why is that important?
They're focusing on you.
Exactly. They're focusing on you and they can't read anything on your chart. You're just going to pay attention to the story. So let's say I was doing a presentation on how to take a stand for what you believe in. And then I would start a story, a personal story, beginning, middle, and end. So I would say something like, you know, I had this client once that it was a prime contractor, a very large Fortune 50 company, and also a supplier and a customer. And there was 6 years of hatred on this team. And they were fighting for our national security. They were doing a program for our national security. And they called me in because Congress was really upset with them that they weren't finishing across the finish line. So they were going to cancel the program. It was costing the United States hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And they said, that's it, we're going to cancel the program. And a vice president called me from the prime contractor and said, can we please try an intervention? And I said, okay, I might be willing to do this. And he said, okay, you have a day. So 6 years of hatred in one day. I'm like, no way. Okay, get yourself another consultant. I need 3 days. 2 weeks later, I need another 2 days. And then I need a half day or a full day working with that team for the rest of the year. And they ended up doing it. But I took a stand for my principle because I knew it would be damaging to the credibility of our company to have walked in there to try to do something in a day and work a miracle. And now the program did finish, I am happy to say, and it is protecting our nation as we speak. So that's an example of how you would tell a story, but to really get credibility going and a result going in an audience. So it's how you can start, but I start with a black blank. So think about what's your story. Is the presentation you're working on, do you need to start with a story? If so, did one come to mind? So use of images and video are very powerful. This is an example of a client of ours who was a vice president, engineer, and she was going to be making a presentation to the Society Women of Engineers, 1,000 people in the room. So 50% college students, 50% professional. It was for inspiration, and it was mixed personality type, so you don't know which one it was, right? All four are in the room. So this is how she started.
Dear Madam.
Dear Madam,
Dear Madam, in reply to your recent communication,
I would state that we have not now, have never had,
and do not expect to have in the near future,
any women students registered in our engineering department.
yours very truly.
We do not permit women to register in the engineering school under our present regulations. Are you serious?
I suspect the number of women who have undertaken general engineering courses is so few that you will hardly be able to form an organization. However, I may be mistaken.
While we cannot legally register women in the college, there is nothing to prevent our admitting them as visitors,
which permits them the benefit of instruction, although without status as students.
Dear lady.
Dear lady?
For Pete's sake.
Dear lady, up to the present, women students have not been admitted.
Period.
So only 13% of engineering jobs are held by women. And we all can change that. We all can change that. And that's why I'm here today, is to break the stereotype and be a role model. And I need all of us to do that and to commit to that today. So that's an example, right, of showing a video and using powerful images to really get an audience sitting on the edge of their seats. To say, I want to know more. How do I do that? I want to change that. Because that was only 100 years ago. 50% women, and only 13% are holding engineering jobs. So an example of using video and images. Is everyone else hot in here? Is it a little warm? You were cold? Okay. Do you mind if we turn it down just a little bit, Austin? Thank you. I'm very rarely warm, so when I'm warm, I'm like concerned. So video, you can state a statistic, right, like I did in the beginning, and said, look, 50 to 80% of the people who go through our programs are getting promoted. Data people like that. You can ask a question. Asking a question. You can ask for a show of hands, and I really like this technique, which is a no, no, yes. So let's see if that works here. How many of you absolutely love public speaking? See, there's a few of you that really do. All right. Most of the time, hardly anyone raises their hands, but there are a few of you that do.
Know your audience.
Know your audience, exactly. How many of you actively volunteer for every chance you get to deliver a presentation? All one of you. How many of you realize the importance of being able to communicate with confident, concise clarity? Right? So you can do kind of a no, no, yes to get everyone, then they all raise their hand, and you're like, okay, let's go. That's what today's about. So that's a nice technique in terms of how to get attention. And then quotes are awesome. You know, it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. Mark Twain. It's a great way to start a presentation. So think about yours and what you need to deliver this year, and what do you think would work best, and jot it down on that worksheet. You know, would it be a story or a quote or a question, an image, a video? Maybe you need to find a video, and you can just write down, I need to find a video. And if you're not thinking about one, really think about how can you make a presentation for your company. People want to know about what you do.
Would you consider running a meeting, making a presentation?
It could be. Like, that's more facilitation. But yes, if you have to make sure everyone's keeping on track and run the agenda, it could be. You have to keep someone's interest. It helps even in a meeting. God knows we sit in enough meetings, right? It's like it's helpful when you get the attention going on in a meeting.
Yeah, I was thinking about the attention getting opening.
Yeah.
How you get everybody to stop thinking about everything they're thinking about and focus on what you want to think about.
Right.
Well, you
Yeah.
have to know what the intent of your speaking. Are you educating people, or are you motivating them? Or are you trying to get a specific outcome. You maybe, your intent may be educate data, or the opposite is to emotionally touch their heart, to have them do something to improve their lives. Completely different presentations.
Mm-hmm. True. Good. And that's really what Sharon's talking about, is the next part of this formula, which is an executive summary. So, no, but that's great. It's a good segue. I couldn't have set that up better, Sharon. So the executive summary is actually saying, what is the purpose of your presentation? Is it to educate? Is it to inform? You know, is it to share something or inspire? It's like, what is the purpose that you're there to do? And then what's in it for the audience? They want to know that so they can listen to you. Like, what's in it for the audience to listen to you? Is it a 30% cost savings? Is it, you know, to, I don't know, improve a revenue, you know, or market share? Like, what's in it for the audience to listen to you? And then the action that you want. So I need a decision at the end of this, or I need to know that I have buy-in, or I want your input and feedback. So today I said, hey, I'd love your input and feedback, and also I'd love for you to be able to learn and apply what you're learning today back at work. So what's that action that you want? So that women's engineering conference example that I showed you the video, hers was, I'm here to inspire you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Because as a female engineer, I have had to, I'm talking for her now, you know, I've had to put myself into very uncomfortable situations in order to help other women join engineering. And I want you to find your authentic self and reach for your dreams and help others to do the same. Because I know, I'm talking to 1,000 people here who want to be engineers or are engineers. And then we're going to all commit to one next step, just one next step to accelerate women in engineering. So that's an example of a good executive summary, so that then your audience knows how to listen to you. So let's say your presentation is cut short, you know, where you might have 5 minutes instead of 30 minutes. This is a great chart to go to, because all of it's there, and you can just talk to it. So think about what your executive summary would be for the presentation that you need to make this year, and jot that down on the worksheet. You know, what is the purpose? Is it to educate? Is it to inform? Is it to get to buy-in? It's more educate, inform, share, and then what you want is later. Yeah.
What would the difference be between this and, say, a classic elevator speech?
The classic elevator speech, as I understand it, is to introduce your business in, like, you know, what it takes to go in an elevator. And this is more, you know, for the purpose of a conversation or a presentation. That it could go well beyond that. You could probably use this as an elevator speech, you know, for your business. However, it can apply to any presentation or conversation that you need to have. You should always go into any meeting you're going to have knowing this. You know, what is your presentation purpose or your conversation purpose? What's in it for the audience, and what's the action you want from it? Does that make sense? Like, I know the group we're in does the 4 whys for the elevator speech.
Yeah.
The 4 whys. But this is the bottom line up front, so people know how to listen to you. And then the agenda is the next piece. So the agenda, many people are like, oh, why do I need an agenda? So that outlines the main points, and it's the blueprint to your presentation. It's really that short outline that says, I'm going to talk about these 3 to 5 things, and this is what you might not realize is that 70% of personality types need it to follow a presentation. So why would you not have one? 30% ignore it. 30% ignore it, but that's okay because they'll just ignore it. But you may as well have one. You may as well have one because 70% are going to want one to follow it. So I always have one. I always say have one. It doesn't have to be really long or anything like that, but it could just be, look, today we're going to talk about where we've been, where we are today, and where we're going. Could be something very easy and simple like that. This is our day 4 agenda for our 5-day program. What do you notice about this? Yeah, there's not a lot of times, is there? There's some boundaried times. So we say, hey, put times on an agenda that are boundaries. Like we know we have to get them out of there at 8:15. And we know we have to start the workshops at 1:45 so they can be ready for video reviews and everything. But they don't need to know all the stuff in the middle. The facilitators can handle that. And then they're not sitting there trying to check off the times and making sure we're not behind schedule. So it's a technique we use. This is the agenda for the woman who did the presentation for the women's engineers. You can do something fun. You can put a picture and just say, I'm here to talk about aspire, advance, and achieve. That's simple. But then the people who need it can follow it. So what are 3 to 5 points in the presentation that you're thinking about that you want to make as your agenda? And just jot it down on your worksheet. It might be why I want a raise, why I deserve a raise, and why you're going to give me a raise. No. Elaine's like really kicking herself now. There's an art to this. It's like, how can I tell my best story? You know, what do I need to cover to tell my best story?
It's like a 5-paragraph expository themes we wrote in high school.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you wrote that down. And I'm going to move on to the clear body message. So how many of you have sat in talks or presentations and just said, please get me out of here? Because, yeah.
I was with you.
We're very harsh critics. I know. I have to be careful what I ask for today, right? But that's, yeah, we are very, because if it's too circular of thinking, then you get lost and you can't like pay attention. So that's something that is very important, is to make sure that the clear body message, so this is the body of your presentation. It's really the skeleton of it. And we've come up with an acronym called the HORSE to help you in terms of writing a clear body message for any presentation. So this is where you would take those 3 to 5 points of your agenda and you would say, I need a HORSE for each one of those. So what do I mean by a HORSE? You need to highlight the point. So you need to say, okay, I'm talking about this point. I'm talking about the past right now. I'm talking about where we've been right now. And why would we start with the hottest topic?
Attention.
Get attention.
In case you're cut short.
Yes, in case you're cut short. And we just experienced this. Dana and James and I went to a conference in Gretchen. And there was this great presenter. She had sold her business for $1 billion or billions of dollars. And there was this, she was very authentic and real, and she had us laughing a lot because she was using the F word and all kinds of bombs. But at the end, we're like, where was the content? You know, we said, what was the point? And she got to it when she ran out of time. So she finally got to it, and she's like flipping through all these charts, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what I wanted. And she got to it too late. She ran out of time, and she got pulled off stage. So she was entertaining, but she put her hottest topic at the end. So always put it at the beginning. And you got to say, okay, so what? So why is this an important point? Why am I talking about this? And then you might need to give a little relevant information or data. If it's a longer point, you would take time and summarize it. But if it's not a longer point, then you can skip that part and you could ease to your next H. So that would be easing to the next agenda item, or you could ease to what we call a fireworks close. This helps you to bring order to a presentation so that your audience stays with you. So this is the Aspire, Advance, and Achieve, the women's engineering. So she said, okay, everyone close your eyes and think about a new experience that you've had in the past. And everyone did that. And then she would say, okay, there's an initial learning curve, and it's really steep, and that's when you get really uncomfortable. And then learning becomes more comfortable, and then there's an expert level. And you kind of plateau, and guess what that means? It's time for a new experience. And then you have another initial learning curve that's steep. You have learning with comfort, and you get that expert level, and another new experience. So that's why I'm asking you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So that was an example of how she highlighted the point, said, okay, so what, and gave a little bit of relevant information for her point of the agenda for Aspire. And then she eased to the next point, which was her own journey and how she found her passion in life. So she talked about advancing in her career. And this is a great way, if you have to talk about your career, to think about a road and a path. And then she told her story. I'm not going to go through each part, but she told her story as she went. And then said that that really is her passion. And with each one of those new experiences, she felt uncomfortable. So again, that's the HOR of a horse for advance. So that's an example. And we won't have time now for you to think about that, but definitely on that worksheet, you can do that after the presentation, because that takes a little bit more thought about how do you really outline that whole part of your presentation. But the horse should help you in writing a clear presentation. So think about what's your horse. And if you are using charts, and you don't have to, but if you are, I want you to think about this, and 90% of all information is visual. Visual aids improve learning by 400%. So think about how important it is to have visual aids. And the brain processes visual images 60,000 times faster than text. So you want to use some visuals in your presentation, for sure. This is not a visual. Right? What is this? Words. And then people actually have this even more in like 8-point font sometimes I see on charts. And they're talking like that you're with them. And you're like, where am I looking right now? I don't know where to look. What that was static electricity. So you could just say static electricity, or better yet, show it. So you get the point, right? You get the point and you're visual, like, that's static electricity. You don't have to put all those words. The whole thing is to become that you are the presentation, and your charts are supporting that. And there's also a 3 to 5 second rule. If you can't read something in 3 to 5 seconds, it shouldn't be on the chart. Way too long, yes? I see this all the time in companies. So then what do? You pick out the biggest, most important words, and then you're here and you still want to go to sleep, yes? So instead, you might want to add a picture, but that's pretty small. And if it's visual, we always say put the picture on the left and the words on the right, because the brain is processing faster. So they'll get the picture first and then go to the words. And then if you've noticed, I've used a lot of clicking today through my charts. We use appear on PowerPoint, appear fast. And then your audience cannot go ahead of you. So you keep control of the audience. I had to make a presentation to the CEO of one of our Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 50, companies, and I was a little nervous. And this is how I controlled the meeting, because I was told that she would actually just look ahead and she would just tell you where to go, but she couldn't look ahead because I didn't hand anything out, and I went like this, point by point. And we had the best dialogue, and she gave me 80 more minutes. It was unheard of. So you can control the presentation speed this way versus just having all these words up on the chart immediately. So this is what we started with, and that's the final result. Much more appealing. There's a little bit on charts. Then you always want to end well, just like you started with that attention-getting opening, you want to finish with fireworks. Many different ways you can do that. You can say in summary, summarize what you've talked about. You can give a quote or more images or a video. You could savor.
Yeah.
Which we could outside later. I know we talked about ending with savoring, but
Not carpet at all.
yeah, the
but-
carpet.
Yeah.
All right, bookends, which I'll show you a bookend when I end the presentation shortly. And then challenge, you can end with a challenge. So I'm going to talk about only a couple of these. Repeat word or phrase. So this is a great one, right? Never, never, never give up. It's a great way of ending a presentation because the brain never, never, never will remember. Martin Luther King, right, celebrated him this week. I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream. So powerful. One of the most powerful speeches ever given. So as a challenge, you could show a visual, right? And say, are we just spectators or are we actually participants? Because what I'm asking for us to be today are participants. So that could be a great way of ending something, is to present a challenge like that. The engineer, the woman engineer that was making the presentation ended with this and said, why I'm passionate about the work I do is because I help these guys come home safe every day. Because she helps build these helicopters. And this was her brother. So it really hit home. It's emotional, even when I talk about it, and it's not my brother. And then she went on to tell a story, black blank. So you can combine some of these things. And you can say, look, I just was 2 weeks ago at this Marine Corps event, and we went, and we had great black tie, we had wonderful silent auction, we wined and dined with generals, and then I was sponsoring the event, and the next morning we had to go to a breakfast. And I came to the breakfast, and I saw this. And this was only 2 weeks ago. So there was a ladies' breakfast and a men's breakfast. And so I had to be okay being uncomfortable when I walked into the men's breakfast. Right? And that's what the audience did. I mean, this was a society of women's engineers, right? So she walked into the men's breakfast, she sat down, she was sponsoring the event, and the generals welcomed her. So she said, what breakfast are you going to break into? And what's that one next step that you're going to take? What's that one next step you're going to take to accelerate women in engineering? And that's what she used to get off the stage. So you want to leave them with something, really leave them with something. So you can think about what are you going to leave your audience with in the presentation that you're developing. So I say follow this. It really works. And if you remember when we started, and this is how you bookend, by the way, when we started, I asked you, what does success look like for you in this next year? And you wrote something down. And so I hope you're going to apply what you learned today, which is your presence plus your audience plus your presentation equals your success, to help go and get that success. And you need all three of these things, because the way that the authenticity code was actually born was because some guy who was an executive at a Fortune 50 company showed up for a very high-level military presentation, so generals in the room, showed up with brown scuffed shoes. Now, I don't say that this is a great way, right, that we are in our world, but the generals could not pay attention to what he was saying. They couldn't pay attention to it. All they could stare at was the brown scuffed shoes. I thank that guy every day, because we were able to develop this from that story. And the senior vice president called me the next day and said, we need your help. Please come and teach us how to up our presence and have clear presentations for our audience. So I hope you go back and really apply some of what you learned today. And I want you to think about what that's going to be. And on the last page of your page 13, thank you, is I commit to. So I want you to think about, from what you heard today, is there anything that you want to keep doing? Because I know there are so many successful women in here and men in here that you are already doing things that are working well. Maybe you saw some things I even talked about that you're like, I do this really well. So write down what you're going to keep doing, and then write down what you might stop doing, and write down what you might start doing differently leaving here today. I'll give you a minute to do that. And I'm going to end with a video and then take any questions you may have. And so authenticity, again, is your most powerful way of adding value by expressing your unique gifts and talents for your chosen audience. And it's my purpose, I really know it's my purpose, to help as many leaders as possible on this planet to connect with this. And so I'm going to show a video that we show in some of our programs, and I showed at Columbia University, and one of my students developed it. So it's not professionally done, but it came from his heart. And it shows many people who are living their leadership callings in life. And I kind of call this your authentic leadership calling, because all the time we are being called to do something. We're being called to do something new or something next. Right? Sharon, I'm just thinking of you, you know. She made this huge transformation in her business and is now out on the speaking circuit and writing, and she's being called to that. So I want you to just listen to the video, and then at the end I'm going to tell you how you can complete an exercise that will help you to get in touch with what you're being called to do next. I thank my student Neil for that. So if you appreciated that and you would like to do our exercise of 10 questions, and those questions went all over the screen throughout the video, then you can download that, no charge for this at this link, and that's also in your handout today. So you can download it and complete it to see what's life calling you to do next authentically. What's your authentic leadership calling? And you can answer those 10 questions that were coming over the screen at that time. All right, so I thank you for being such a captive audience, and I would love to know if there's any questions. Any questions or clarifying? Yes, Deborah.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
You shared a data point at the beginning when you started your presentation, and it was something like, I'm about to share with you about 5 days content, and I'm going to share it with you in the next hour and a half.
Right.
So in essence, you began to set my expectations. Is that a process that you use? I mean, how many of us have presentations that we use? I've even had the situation where they say you've got 45 minutes, and then the day you get ready to go on stage, they go, I need you to cut this to 25 minutes. You know, so I mean, is there a process, a secret, a tactic that you've got that really allows us to take this and pull it in?
Yeah, I think that using well, first of all, to know, okay, I plan for an hour and a half, right? But I might get cut. So therefore, I always know in my mind when I'm doing a presentation, or if anyone at Inside Out Learning is doing a presentation, what are the parts that would be cut? So that's why we start with the hottest topic first. Also, you start with the hottest topic first. You plan for it. And I tell my clients that too. Like if I'm facilitating a 2 or 3 day leadership team offsite, I will say, what will be cut if we have to, you know, cut, if we need to discuss something longer than we're planning, what's okay to be cut? And everyone knows it. So I think that's really critical.
I mean, one of the things, you did set my expectation. I know that now I know there's 5 more days behind this too.
Yeah.
Was that a deliberate tactic on your part too?
It was not. Today that was not. It was really telling the truth of, I'm trying to give like the key parts of our 5-day program in a keynote, more of a keynote presentation, you know, in an hour and a half presentation, which we haven't done before because we have been inside of the companies doing these programs. They hire us to do these programs. So whether we're doing a half a day, a full day, or 5-day program, you know, but to come and actually do a speech or a presentation to help you get familiar with the content in an hour and a half is new.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I'm going to share a little bit my
Agenda.
agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm in front of the city. All right, and I'm going to present my 3 points are similar projects to your challenge.
Similar projects, okay.
And the challenges within them, explain that.
Uh-huh.
And then the successful outcomes.
Okay.
To what Deborah was asking, if I get cut short, I'm not getting to the good stuff there.
Right. So therefore, can you put it in a different order?
I'll have to think about that.
Think about it because I don't know enough about the content, but the successful outcomes, so many times in that executive summary, a lot of people struggle with this because we're so used to putting the recommendations at the end of the presentation. And the executive summary is saying, ask for what you want at the beginning. Now, I'm not going to go say, hey, I need $1 million from you at the end of this. Right. So there's some political savviness that goes along with it. But really, there is a way that you can say, you know, I need your commitment to go to the next step and try to present that a little earlier in the presentation. It is a mindset that we think that we have to end with that.
Right.
Great. Yep.
So what if we wanted to bring this to our company? How would we move forward with this?
If you want to bring it to your company, then you can talk to Shannon or James. James is my wonderful husband. And also, he is the managing director. And Shannon is our business operations manager. and they would be happy to share with you options. We have things like 2-hour conversations that we can put into an offsite or a meeting, to half-day to 5-day programs. So that's what, and we also do coaching. So just so you know, if you have a presentation that's coming up and you're like, you know what, I just need someone to polish this up or maybe talk it through, we also do one-on-one coaching that we're happy to do. And in like 55 minutes, we could have a presentation written for you. And help you to really think through the outline of a presentation, or maybe even taking your team's presence to the next level or your presence to the next level, or analyzing your audience more and better to help you to do that. So that's something that you can do. I'm also thinking about, so let me test this with you, is to try a public workshop, which we have not done before, but I have really seen at some of these conferences that we go to, the need for this, right? And I would love to do like a couple, I've been thinking about it, and maybe do like 2-hour virtual modules that you could participate in. And if you can't be there, you could at least listen to them, because we'll tape them, and then do a day of practice. And we would coach you between those 2-hour modules and the day of practice. So that could be another way. And the practice would mean that you would come with your presentation, you would do it, you would get feedback from your peers and my expert staff, and you get videotaped, and then you get a video review one-on-one with an expert. And it really helps you. That's where we see in that 5-day, Deborah, to really go through and get that videotaping is so important. So we have not offered that yet as a public workshop, but as we start to release the book, I would like to start doing that. And I just would like to test how many of you would be interested in, I'm not going to ask you to sign up, but how many of you would be interested in something like that? Okay, that's really helpful. So if you are interested in something like that, on your evaluation form at the bottom, it says contact info, and you could write that in, and we can email you when we do set it up. I'm thinking of doing it at Savannah. It would only be a commitment of a day. And that would help you to elevate your presentation and your presence and really get that expert feedback. Yes, sorry. So if everyone can just take out their evaluation form. The feedback form, thank you. The authenticity code feedback. I would love your input into this. And to honestly answer. And then at the bottom, it says a little bit about our coaching. If you're interested, you can talk to Shannon and James. And then if you're interested for us to follow up on a public workshop, you can put your contact down below. But I really appreciate your feedback on this as we are taking this message out to the world. So once you're done, and you can hand the evaluations to Shannon or James on your way out. I'm going to be over there. I can answer any questions you may have. We're all available, Philip as well, to answer questions or to talk to you more about our services and what we offer. Yes?
Before you close, I would just like to invite everyone to agree to help Sharon as she's writing her book. It'll be out to help us get the word out and build that audience, because her expertise is at the top of the line, top corporations. So now we need to build the audience for people that are entrepreneurs and business owners. So if we can ask all of you to help, we will reach out to you when the book is ready to go.
Awesome.
We would
Everybody
love
say
that.
yes?
Thank you, Sharon. All right, fabulous.
No is not an option.
And the book will be a parable. So it's a parable of two people vying for the same job and the journey they go through and who gets the job in the end and why. So it'll be a fun book to read and not one of those heavy books.
We do have more of the style cheat sheets and the authentic presence quality worksheets back there as well, if you want to take
Awesome.
some when you leave.
Yeah, and please have more champagne and Prosecco, and please eat the food because it's going to go to waste. So please.